Today, we're going to break down a teaching model that does something pretty amazing. It takes all that messy classroom chaos and turns it into a real curriculum for empathy. It's called the Exploration of Feelings and Resolution of Conflict model. Okay, picture this. It's a scene every single one of us knows, right? The recess bell rings and all the drama from the playground just floods right back into the classroom. Some simple game goes sideways over a bad call, and suddenly it's a full-blown argument. The game's over, and nobody is happy. Sound familiar? Yeah, I thought so. But here's a thought. What if we stopped seeing this as just another disruption to the lesson plan? What if we saw this chaos as the raw material for teaching one of the most important lessons there is? How to actually understand our feelings and handle the conflicts that pop up every single day. So here's what we've got on top. We're going to start with that everyday conflict, then introduce the framework for dealing with it. We'll dive deep into its two main strategies, see how it works for different ages, and then wrap up by looking at the huge impact this can have. Look, let's be real. Conflict is going to happen. It's just part of life. And you know what? That's not a bad thing. In a classroom, these moments aren't failures. They're actually opportunities. They're real, they're happening right now, and they are the perfect launch pad for teaching some seriously vital social and emotional skills. So the big question is, how do you take all that chaotic energy and actually turn it into a learning moment? Well, that's exactly where this model comes into play. It gives us a real, structured way to guide students through the, let's face it, messy reality of just being human. When you boil it all down, this model is about helping students take all that stuff that's going on inside, their beliefs, their values, their attitudes, and bring it out into the open. By talking through and even acting out real problems, they don't just learn to act differently, they actually start to understand why they feel the way they do. And that's the first step to real growth. Okay, so this whole model really stands on two big ideas, or pillars, if you will. The first is the empathy pillar. You got to understand the feelings involved before you can even think about solving the problem. The second is the action pillar. Once you get it, you need a solid plan to move forward. Empathy and action. Let's break them down. All right, so let's dig into that first pillar, the exploration of feelings strategy. This is all about giving students the tools and the vocabulary they need to figure out what's really going on inside themselves and inside other people when things get tense. This strategy has 5 really clear steps. It's like a roadmap. First, you just state the facts, what actually literally happened, no opinions yet. Then you start to interpret what might be going on. But then you get to the really crucial part, exploring feelings, connecting it to your own life, and then, this is key, building empathy by comparing your feelings to theirs. And this is where things get really cool, because a huge part of this is just having the right words. Kids, and adults too, often get stuck with mad or sad. A tool like this helps them find more specific words, like frustrated or anxious or even confident. It just opens up a whole new level of understanding yourself. So let's take this back to our recess showdown, right? The facts are simple. A ball, a line, a disagreement. The inference? Both teams really want to win. But the magic happens when students start talking about the feelings, cheated, frustrated, angry, and someone says, hey, that happened to me in kickball. All of a sudden, it's not just an argument. It's a shared human thing. Okay, so we've got the empathy piece down. Now we need to actually do something. That brings us to the second pillar, the resolution of conflict strategy. This is where understanding turns into action. Now this one is a bit more detailed. It has 9 steps. It starts off the same way, with facts and inferences, but then it gets into brainstorming actual solutions and defending why you think they'd work. And what's really important here are those last steps, reflecting on how it was handled and figuring out the big picture lesson you can use next time. And here is an absolutely critical skill that gets taught here. It's the shift from you statements to I statements. Think about it. When you say, you're so rude, the other person just gets defensive. But when you say, I feel hurt when I'm interrupted, you're not blaming, you're explaining. And that opens a door to a real conversation. It's a total game changer. And here's a brilliant way to see this in action, a super practical tool called the Peace Path. It's like a script, perfect for younger kids or for just handling something quickly on the playground. It walks them through using those I messages, suggesting solutions, and making sure everyone feels heard. It's simple but so effective. Let's try another classic scenario. We've all been there. The group project where one person isn't pulling their weight. Instead of just fuming, students can use these steps.
They brainstorm options, decide the best place to start is a direct conversation using I feel statements, and walk away with a huge life lesson. Teams just don't work without open communication. All right, so one of the best things about this model is that it's not rigid. It grows with the kids. Let's see how it looks in elementary school versus high school, because the problems, they definitely change. For the little ones in elementary school, conflicts are usually pretty concrete, right? He took my red crayon. The model here is simple and direct. You use those basic I feel statements and find a simple, turn-taking solution. The whole goal is just to build that early habit of talking it out instead of lashing out.
Fast forward to high school and, well, things get a lot messier, don't they? The conflicts are more complex, they're happening online. For something like a nasty social media comment, the resolution requires way more thought. You have to weigh the pros and cons of different actions and really focus on understanding why it happened in the first place. So that's the model. The big questions are, does this stuff actually work? And why should we care? What's the bigger picture here beyond just having a quieter classroom?
Right, so how do you even know if it's working? You can't exactly give a test on empathy. Success is measured by watching and listening. You use things like interviews and just observing how kids interact. You're looking for real changes in their behavior, their attitudes, and most of all, are they getting better at seeing the world from someone else's shoes?
And this is where it all connects to something so much bigger than the classroom. The skills we're talking about, listening, empathizing, seeing another side, finding a solution together, these aren't just good classroom skills. They're the absolute foundation of how a civil, democratic society is supposed to work.
So it really leaves you with one final, pretty powerful question to chew on. Just imagine for a second. What if this was lesson 1? What if every kid learned this from the get-go? How different would our workplaces, our neighborhoods, and just our general conversations be?
Pretty powerful stuff to think about, right? You can find all the sources we used for this explainer right there on your screen. Thanks so much for watching.